Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chandni Basu. I'm the Assistant Professor at the Center for Interdisciplinary Studies and Research in Social Sciences. I warmly welcome you today at Sister Nivedita University. Today is our fourth ADDA BAITHAK. And with that, I would ask our Professor Dr. Bula Bhadro, the Director of the Center, to take forward the proceedings of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Chandni. She's not just the assistant professor. Like me, she is the clerk, the peon, and any other odd jobs we do in SNU. I know Anindita is laughing because Anindita does too. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm very glad at least there are some people in this particular issue because a confession must be made. I was not much aware, even as a sociologist, for a long time, until unless I became the pain of what disability actually physically means. When I had pains in my both knees and couldn't walk that much or cannot go up the stair, then I understood what a physical disability is in terms of daily life. And from then on, that was about when I was 50 years old, now I'm 70. So last 20 years, I have been actually feeling every other day newer disabilities, experiencing disabilities, etc. But sociologists actually define disability in a very different way. They say disability only exists if we think they are disabled, both physically and mentally. So the social construction view or the social model, which United Nations also have accepted, says that disability is caused by the way society is organized. So every society in its phases has understood disability, so to speak, or the couching term of differently abled people in their specific ways. So there is no one way or homogeneous way of looking at this. Because in some cases, disability is no disability, it is ability. Stephen Hawking. Would we think Stephen Hawking as a disabled person? No. So obviously, there are lots of people who are not disabled, but when they cannot get access to certain things, for example, let's say family get-togethers, or let's say Durga Puja pandal. You cannot walk to the Durga Puja pandal of a kilometer these days because you are not able to walk kilometer. So that is actually access, not disability on the part of the individual, so-called. That is the access to the infrastructure where you are disabled. Like I'm disabled completely now because I don't walk or cannot stand more than 5 minutes. I get a severe pain in my sciatica nerve and the back. So obviously I'm disabled, and for last 4 years or so, lockdown, given the lockdown 2 years, 4 years or so, let's say 2.5 years or so, I haven't been able to visit Durga Puja pandals, not for my devotion, but for the art it is created in Kolkata. Durga Puja art, lighting and every other thing is actually culture and industry. I haven't been able to see other than the television. Every time I go anywhere nowadays, I have to ask, do I have to get to the, how many stairs I have to handle? Is it on which floor? Is it on, do you have a lift? And then I have to ask the simple question of, do you have a Western style toilet, please? So it is like almost centuries question to me. In 21st century, I feel myself physically disabled, no doubt about it, compared to other able people. And I have to ask the question, like the centuries question is now, can you hear me over the online? That's the first question every speaker asks. So every time I have to tell that I cannot do that. Even if SNU sometimes, restricted our access to the first floor. There is only one lift available to the first floor. And I shouted a lot for that. That I will not go to anywhere, no make program in the seminar room if I don't go by the lift. Because by the time I go up, I'm slightly tired. And so all the time I cannot get somebody to hold my hand. Chandni will be holding my hand all the time, 24/7. I mean, is Chandni appointed for that? No. So this is a real disability. And people don't understand. When they say, no, there are two stairs. The two stairs are like, to me, Himalayas. I went to this time Indian Sociology Congress. The first two things I told the president when she was inviting me and the organizing secretary, what kind of arrangement in terms of my staying and my going up, because Meghalaya, tremendous deep. So this is my confession, in a sense, and a narrative, that I think the reason I never could have attended any seminar on disability, culture, society, etc., because our universities do not do that. When I was in Calcutta, it was a matter of almost a laughing matter. Who will come? Only disabled. We have to then take 5 or 10 disabled people as speakers so that they will come. That was the kind of reply I got. But here I am much more independent, there is no doubt about it, because I am the director, finally. So I can say I want to have this topic positively. Nobody can say no. And here I am aided also by people like our Pro-VC, who is deeply actually into this. So I would say that disability from the welfare approach of 1995 Act to up to 2016, the new Act, is somewhat human rights approach. I would not say actually it's a fully human rights approach. It has some predicaments, loopholes, etc. Shampa Sengupta is here, my friend for a long time, who has been working on this for the longest time I know, and has actually, I would give Shampa a sort of a leaf saying that she actually contributed to my awareness about disability, because Shampa, by calling me actually to the conferences, I forced myself to read about things, and actually I give Shampa a lot of credit for creating awareness in West Bengal. She's one of the activists to whom we are all indebted. No, I think Shampa, everybody will be in agreement, no doubt about it. So this act actually talks about now 21 conditions. It started with somewhat 7 or so. It talks about now cerebral palsy, dwarfism, muscular dystrophy, acid attack victims, hard of hearing, speech, language disability, specific learning disabilities, autism spectrum, and at the same time, etc., etc., mental retardation has been actually added. And we know that every day or other, somewhere or other, people are actually labeled, people are actually told that you are not up to the mark. You're not mentally fit. And that creates, I mean, those who tell they do not know, unfortunately, that we have one thing we call primary leveling creates secondary leveling. Primary deviations call for secondary deviance. If you call somebody because the person speaks slightly slowly or gets the point slightly slowly, and you say, you're not to be here because you're not normal. See, this concept of normal, of modernity, is a curse. Because there is nothing called normal. Then Galileo was not normal. It was right for them to put them in prison. Nobody is normal. Socrates was never normal. Nobody is normal in that case. Subhash Chandra was absolutely abnormal. So obviously only mediocre, those who adhere to the established order, they are normal. Other than that, if you speak something else, you are abnormal. Pagul, ki bolche? এই হচ্ছে particular expressionটা এবং এটা যদি if we follow in our daily interaction with people, then by the time you will find yourself only normal. Rest you think abnormal and you are actually marching with, especially if you are in the position of power. That's a problematic matter. That is why I would, with all the defects, I would still say the act is a good one if it is properly implemented. And I, for my sake, would like the Center and Psychology Department to arrange for regular counseling from social point of view and psychological point of view. Regular counseling doesn't matter who is normal, abnormal. Everybody should come. You have a set of questions you answer and they are anonymous, etc. Because everybody needs some kind of advice, counseling. Don't take it as a counseling. If you feel the word actually says that, no counseling, I don't need any counseling, this approach is abnormal approach. then let me say it this way. Everybody needs counsel, advice. That's why we have actually society, otherwise we would have left still in the days of nomads and just wandering around. We collectively have society because we need each other. This needing is advice, counsel, whatever you say. But don't consider anybody not normal, or do not consider anybody that is below because that person doesn't look too normal to you. That is one of the cause. If we think some genius talking and I cannot understand because I am mediocre, that person is not abnormal, think what will happen to the human civilization. All the geniuses actually talked quite differently. And if diversity is not human civilization's basic principles, then we are not human. You are absolutely jungle trotters. Don't think, গাধা কি কখনো কাউকে exploit করেছে? জানেন? গাধারা শোষণ করে বলে? কিন্তু আমরা বলি, গাধা বলি, পিগ বলি, সেটা পিগ একটা নিরীহ জন্তু, শুকর, নিরীহ জন্তু, তাকে আমরা পিগ বলেছি। এনসিপি তাই মেল শোভিনিস্ট পিগ হওয়া উচিত না, মেল শোভিনিস্ট। Period. Because it is the humans who do that. So by starting this particular issue at ADDA BAITHAK, our very specific objective was to create awareness and repeat this one with different aspects, with much specificity as we go on and etc. So I'm very, very happy now to introduce our first speaker, Professor Anupam Basu, who has recently finished his tenure in Durgapur IIT as director and joined us. Frankly speaking, when I read this short CV, I went to the Google and read the 38-page CV. Don't ask me anything because it was so huge. But I'm very impressed, I must say that. I have a different notion about a computer scientist. The ones I have, they don't care. But he is an active researcher in the areas of cognitive and intelligent systems, embedded systems and language processing, has led a number of development projects for technology-enabled education, including school education and evaluation education for those with physical abilities, and as a leading NLP researcher, has developed several tools and systems of processing in Indian language, especially Bangla, through computers. He has also taught to different universities of United States, for example, California, Irvine, and he was in Guelph also, Ontario, where I was there for a brief period. He has only 265 publications in international journals. That's not that much. So he has acted the chairperson of the AICT Curriculum Revision Committee for Computer Science and Engineering and served several committees of government in India and those in the state of West Bengal. The first day when Anupam Basu actually told me he's interested, I took it casually, I must confess. But when I read this, I gave a slap to myself that I should not have done that. He is an Alexander von Humboldt Fellow, a Fellow of the Indian National Academy of Engineering, and Fellow of the West Bengal Academy of Science and Technology. The awards won by him, to say the few one, state awards for the best contribution to the cause of empowerment of the disabled, 2014. Emphasis Universal Design Award 2011 for contribution in design for the disabled by National Council for Promotion of Employment of Disabled Persons, India. The National Award for Best Technology Innovation for the Physically Disabled, and the Da Vinci Award from the Multiple Sclerosis Society of Michigan for the Best Technological Innovation for the Physically Challenged. I mean, this part really blew me over, no doubt about it. I never knew about him. I knew him for some time now, but I didn't know about this. So one of the major achievements is to setting up the Society for Natural Language Technology Research, an organization which, among other things, have digitized the entire Rabindra Bharati, all genre in Unicode format, along with the Swarolipi of the songs. That's another feather in his cap. Thank you, Professor Basu, for actually agreeing to say this. It's all yours now, sir.
Thank you, Professor Bhatta. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Should I take this?
Even without the one you are audible, but not.
So, is it okay? Okay. So, I just struggled with Chandni a little bit and with him to put in this picture on the slide because this is something I found very interesting when last month I was traveling to NIT Rourkela. As you can see, it is a reserved compartment for persons with disabilities, and you can see what is being loaded there. That shows, you can see that the different type, it's being used as a luggage van. So that shows the empathy of the railway authorities, and in spite of all the acts, 1995 and subsequent modifications in 2016 and 17, this is the state of affairs. So I thought, before I start, let me tell you briefly why I delved into this area of research. I was working in my room at IIT Kharagpur Computer Science Department when one of my friends, Professor Shobhitra Banerjee, who is now in ISAR, Kolkata, brought a blind person whose name is Dipankar Roy. And he straightway came to me, and after a brief introduction and a cup of tea, he challenged me that you are doing all journal papers, you are doing all sorts of research, what have you done for us? I was a little, of course, I had no answer. I said, what can I do for you? And this Dipankar Roy was a student of Presidency College, did his postgraduate in English, and then he described the state of affairs that they are in. And some of you may know that there is an organization called Blind Persons Association who are situated in Badulpur locality, and Dipankar used to stay there. He has a couple of, just before Corona, 2 or 3 years before Corona, he passed away. So he told me the problems that the blind students face. Actually, the problems that they face, I come to solutions of that. So I then took it up as a challenge and developed a solution for them. And they were very happy. They participated in all the testings. But ultimately, I'll also tell you where the situation is now. In spite of all enthusiasm from the ordinary blind people. I'm not talking of organized blind people. Among the blind community, I'd like to make a distinction because I have very painfully learned that there are some organized blind organizations and there are some commoners who are sightless and who really need help. So, and I've met both of them. I'm not saying that anybody is ill-meaning, but the way the activities come up by organized, let me give an example. One is Ranendrapur Ramakrishna Mission Blind Persons, Blind School. All right? I've got no qualms to mince my words. I'll talk about that. And I'm also not a very religious person. So let me come to the next slide. I was thinking about society, disability and culture. My exposure to culture of the blind people or the disabled people, I don't have a very clear idea about it. But how does the society and some societal problems, I never studied sociology. I learned it through experience while working with these organizations working on disability. And at every stage, I met with them and I followed the bottom-up approach. I believe in bottom-up approach of development. I, being a technologist, I had to develop technology. And while developing the technology, there are two types of technology development. One is top-down. I sit in an ivory tower and think of something and design a particular thing and take it to the users. But I found that thing doesn't work. So what we did, and my students as well, who first interact with the segment of disability, the disabled segment, and work with them, try to find out the specifications, what they need, try to find out where the shoe pinch, and then take up the development, and again go back in a closed cycle. We go back and get the things field tested by these blind people, sorry, not blind people, by the disabled people, and then we carry out the refinements. So they become a part and parcel of our development process. So while doing this, I found certain things. One is the awareness about disability, all said and done, all acts being passed, is still in a very, very bad shape, even in the urban sector. You can see the turnout today. That tells something. And I also strongly oppose making a rosy picture of disability, that they are specially able. What special ability? They are disabled. They don't have eyesight. They may have a good feeling in through smell or through skin, but by putting these superlative adjectives, somehow I find that it is pushing the disability to the background, that they are specially able, so they are empowered, specially empowered. They can do many things, right? And don't bother about developing, don't harp on their disabilities so much. And the milestone remark of that was Divyangjan, which our government of India started. What is Dibbo about it? Somebody has cerebral palsy, somebody is blind. What is Dibbo about it? You immediately bring out some particular characters from Mahabharata and say these are kinnars. And so you take the eunuchs and their economic plight and say they are kinnars. You know, they are straightway from the heaven. What is Dibbo about disability? And we always try to not to call a spade a spade. And as long as we do not do that, we will not try to solve the real problem. And thereby the awareness about disability, I mean, it hurts me so much. You have seen spastic children. If I ask, barring you people, not Shampa, but others, have you seen spastic children? So here we have got a very select crowd. But in my class of IIT, when I ask do you know what is cerebral palsy? None of them knew. Even many of them did not know about spasticity. But when I enacted being a spastic child, they said, yes, we saw them. Right? That is the lack of awareness, but it can be ignorance, it may not be that much coverage. But the worst part is, if a parent has got a spastic child, the neighbor will say, "Oh, to habagoba, to pagla." So this is the level of awareness even in urban West Bengal. Not to talk about the awareness that is required for the technology development. That is the social aspect of it. Neighbors. But when there are a number of organizations like Indian Institute of Cerebral Palsy, with whom I very closely work, like Blind Persons Association, with whom I closely work. I once worked with Monovikash Kendra also very closely when Madam Fatehpuria was there. She's still there? Okay. All right. So I worked there. Those are the organizations who are really doing fantastic service, trying to do fantastic service, but they are also often not aware of what is technologically possible. Please note my words. What is technologically possible in India? what is technologically possible and available in India. Narendrapur Ramakrishna Mission, that's a fantastic school, no doubt about it. They are doing a great service for the blind schools and printing braille books. But they hesitate to introduce Indian products, which will not cost them much. They prefer still to print, I would say in a medieval way, using imported software like Windbraille and Duxbury, which were not ready before we worked. It was not ready in Indian languages. And I can take the pride for that we at least instigated them to work for Indian languages. So these are the people, they do not say IICP. I'll show you some things. When I visited IICP, I found there is a student called Den Mukherjee. Some of you might have met Den. Den was using a particular switch, which was a spectacle-based switch, eyes switches for mouse clicks. And there were other special burger switches. I'll show some of them today. And those switches were being imported from UK, 50 pounds a pair. And those switches, of course, after all they are artifacts, after some time they did not work and there was no one to repair them, that was dumped. Alright? But they were happy, and IICP is one of the more progressive organizations who had good donors. I am talking about awareness here. Since I have donors, I can overcome these barriers and can give it to my students. But find me another IICP at the district of Midnapur. Find me another IICP in district of Bankura. You won't find. No donors, no technology. The necessity of having our own technology and not depending on the donors, the awareness was lacking. Now the part of human rights, of course, I think it's a part of human rights. I was also an activist. Now I am much less, of course. I remember I just challenged Sujato Bhadro, your namesake, surnamesake. I asked Sujato Bhadro. Surnamesake. Nothing bad. No, I'm nothing bad. I just asked Sujato that you do so many things about human rights. I am a life member of APDR, by the way. But why don't you do something don't you consider these? Now obviously, this requires a different range of capability, a different awareness, Sujato is very well-meaning. He said, yes, we should do it, but the capacity was less. It is specialized. So that sort of awareness, unless that is there, the acts will not give us human rights. And I know many things where a hearing impaired student, passed the vocational examination at the higher secondary level, but was not being given any job just because he was 98% hearing impaired. Ultimately, I really think that TCS, although it's a mass company, people say, TCS gave him a job, and he is still doing that and doing fantastic work. Before TCS, another company also I could push him through. But there are, in the eastern zone, we don't have such organizations who can take these qualified and able, empowered people, empowered disabled people, and feed them in an office work. Such a thing, awareness-wise, much elevated is Chennai. And there is a, what is that called? Enable India. There is an organization, and Shanti is a close friend of mine. I mean, they really organize movements to take such educated, empowered, disabled people who are trained, who can do office work, and go to the offices, and the offices also are accommodating them. But besides Chennai, I checked with Delhi, Shampa can give me better data, but in the eastern zone, no. In the northern zone also I didn't find much. All right? Now I'm coming to this third point, that's the technological awareness and capability. That we can do, it is technologically feasible to make a blind boy learn. There are technologies to do that. It's possible to make a speech impaired person speak, communicate, it's possible. We have technology abroad, we also have technology in India. All right? There is also another lack of awareness among everybody, because all of us have learned to get things free, freebies. So one problem that I faced with all NGOs working on disability is that they fail to understand that IIT or NIT are government funded institutes, and we do not roll in money, and I cannot dole out money. Calcutta University cannot dole out money. And any hardware or any software has got some labor that gets in, and there is some price, there is a cost. Sudha Kaul always used to tell me, Anupam, you were at IIT, so you have got a lot of money, give us free. वो तो नहीं होता है ना. I have to pay the student who is making it, I have to pay the person who is building it, so there is some money required. Because we are habituated in donors and donations, that is also another problem on our side. Government has given some features like ADDA scheme, and we fought, and ultimately ADDA scheme, I think, if I am not wrong, now gives up to 85% of the device cost. Earlier it was a meager amount. So there are all sides of the story. Now, as you were saying, that earlier in 1995 there were 7 or 8 categories of disability. Now it has come up, blindness and low vision have been separated out, leprosy cured persons have been added, hearing impairment has got deaf and hard of hearing, locomotor disability, dwarfism has been included, intellectual disability has been included, mental illness, autism spectrum disorder, cerebral palsy, muscular dystrophy, chronic neurological conditions, SLDs, specific learning disabilities, multiple sclerosis, speech and language disability, thalassemia, hemophilia, sickle cell disease, multiple disabilities including deaf blindness. Now that is where we are really challenged to address this deaf blindness. Acid attack victims and Parkinson's disease. I'd say that geriatry should have been added, because if I just take off my glasses, I can't even read it. So, I mean, as we age, our cognitive disability is also not listed here, but it is there in some way, like learning disability was there, I think. So, it's much better than what was there earlier. Now, the thing to be noted is, some of these are physical disabilities. Many of them are physical disabilities, even mental illness is also physical disabilities, because we consider the brain to be a part of the body. So there are some issues which we can address. Some are congenital. Some medicines are coming up. How many of you have met Dan Mukherjee? Anybody? No. You have met too. And do you know now, Shampa, that Dan can speak now? Yeah. I mean, that was a miracle to me. I mean, one day I said, this is Dan speaking. And he just a new medicine came out in UK, and he has got his uncle there, I think. And that medicine just created magic. So things are working. There are a lot of things are being done. Look at number 9, autism spectrum disorder. A couple of days back was Autism Awareness Day. And just prior to that, one lady, Sabuni Bhattacharya, wrote in her Facebook page that she is working with the autistic children and teaching them sing music. And she was flooded with curses like, how dare you call autism to be autism? Janen na ki? Kana ke kana bolte nahi? Again, don't call a spade a spade. That is the situation. And people are just bursting her with all sorts of abuses. And then some people came up and said that, ja korecho, besh korecho, all those things. That is the cultural scenario. Now, I have not worked in many. I have worked in blindness, low vision, cerebral palsy, wishing to work in autism spectrum disorder. Locomotor disability, of course, has got much better solutions with good wheelchairs and the Jaipur feet and everything. And also learning disability. Where is that? Yeah, speech and language, I'll show you some systems. And specific learning disabilities, other things I have not worked on. So I'll just give you a brief overview of the things, but those of you who are interested, I searched but did not find the ultimate summarized result of the census of 2021. So the census has happened, na?
No, the data. Anyway, it comes 3-4 years later.
Kintu census ta hoy ni na?
Census operation.
Right. So we have to go by this. So we have to go by 2011 data. As you can see, the total number, around 2.2% of our population are disabled. 2.2% of India is not a very small population. So, those of you say, I mean, I faced a number of hindrances. One of them was that there is a niche, there is not much market. 2.2% of Indian population is also not a small market. Maybe less than 5%, but 2.2% is greater than 1.2%. Right? So, if we look at, then of course in movement we find, in visual we can find 20% visually impaired, which includes low vision also, hearing around the same. In movement, 17.5, in speech, 7.4, mental retardation, 5.4, mental illness. So there was a differentiation being done in 11, 2.6, multiple disability, 8.1. So that was the proportion. And another thing that is, what happened? Huh? Oh. My God. Can you read this? All right, let me just go to this part first. Okay, so I want to go up. So here, that was now another data that I have not shown is that according to 2011 census, they are saying around 61% of these disabled students are getting education. I am a little doubtful about that data. Because when that census is being done, usually in the rural sector, most of the people do not bring out their disabled children. And that data is never obtained. And moreover, even if I assume that 61% are getting education, how many of them are being able to complete the education? How many of them are getting the entire gamut of education? There's just a figure doesn't tell a story. All right?
Sir, National Family Health Survey.
No, that should 61%. I never believed that data.
So that's literacy data, sir.
কিন্তু ওরা কিন্তু তা বলছে না। That's a literacy data is different. But getting education means that they are going to school. That's what I'll assume. একদম ছাপায় রয়েছে who are getting education.
Now, ওটাই তো হচ্ছে, because of Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, everybody is getting enrolled. So once you are enrolled and you're...
That is all. We are interested in GER. All right, that is the problem.
false.
Yes, so let me just go to now criticisms apart. What have we done and what is available? First, I start with the visual impairment that we worked on. This one is wrong. Yeah, let's come to this. What is this? Why is that one coming here? Let me just So here we have got a system which is ready to be installed. It is called Sporsho. Sporsho is a software that can convert any Indian language text to Braille immediately. Earlier what was being done, for those of you who do not know, Braille papers are quite thick. I forgot, I thought I'll bring a Braille book, where you use stencil and used to manually type in all the letters. And that is very painstaking. It takes a lot of time. So, a lot of books could not be transcribed. But through this software, we can transcribe any textbook. For English, Windbraille and Duxbury software was available, but for Indian languages, it was not there. So Sporsho was first brought into the market, and Holdia Chaitanya Ashram Blind School first used it, and many others were using it. It can also convert the mathematical symbols to Braille. Now, using this, question papers are being printed. Using this, textbooks are being printed. For those who want to use it, Nanandapur did not buy an indigenous thing. It costs very less, 25,000 rupees for the software. And it can be printed out through any Braille embosser. So it's like a paper on which you have to print. So that is possible to be done on any paper. So it's being shown, being used there. Now here, this is something that has been done at IIT Delhi. That is, not only the text which is converted to Braille, but also the diagrams can be brought in as a tactile figures where the people can touch and get a feel of the figures. So small geographical maps. Along with the Sporsho inscribed, you can see the Braille dots there, which serves as a level of the pictures. This, up to a particular level, NCERT published some books on this, and using this Sporsho, West Bengal Board published Madhyamik books for this. After that, it has stopped now. Brattu Basu told me that they will take it up again, but I don't know. So I keep safe distance. So now this one is speech-enabled Indian language keyboard. One problem that the blind people used to face is to have writers while they give the exams. And they used to dictate and the writer would write. Sometimes the writers used to be absent. Sometimes the writers could write in a wrong way. But here, using this system, the students can themselves type in a special keyboard and can hear what they are typing. And consequently, they can submit the answers through typing. This is also available. Now I come to the cerebral palsy. So you can see the cerebral palsy children, mostly wheelchair bound, you can see that they used to use a picture board like this, on which they used to point on a picture and make a particular type of sound that will form their expression. Book, I hate books, or I want to read books, I love books. All these things they can touch and make different types of sounds. And the caregiver or the parent could understand that. But that in no way could put them in a school, in an inclusive school environment. Now if we want to have an inclusive school environment, people are talking about that, that is still far from reality, then we thought that we'll need some technology for doing that. And the scenario is actually this, that the children these children also cannot use the computer because the mouse they cannot use. Why? Because of their lack of neuromotor resolution. So I can hold the mouse and move it like this, but they cannot move it with close resolution. The keyboard also, they will try to type A and the finger will fall on D or something else. So these two things were taken away from them. And 60 to 70% of such cerebral palsy affected children are speech impaired. They have got no verbal speech. So they could not communicate. So in order to solve these problems, firstly we developed some switches. You can see the switch at the top, that is called the burger switch, and I was talking about that. That was costing 50 pounds a pair, and this one is 2,000 rupees. Okay? So not even 2,000 rupees, it is 1,500 rupees a pair. All right, and this has been developed, and you can see different forms of switches. The lower yellow one can be worn here. Those who can just do this, they can do the mouse click with this. With those switches, I thump on that, they don't need resolution. They can just do this on these switches, and I'll show you how it works. So here you can see, this is a soft system called Akash Bunny. This is for the speech impaired people, also for the cerebral palsy children. Here on this tablet, there are different icons, and there are messages stored with each of the icons. So the people who can just point their finger and touch, they can touch, and the particular message will be spoken out in their own language. But those who cannot touch, it is an automatic scrolling thing. You can see this part, that this is a highlighted icon. Now, you have seen those two switches. One switch, if you thump, then it will scroll from here to here, then here, here, for each thumb. And again, we'll go back here. Now, when you come to your desired icon, you thump the other switch, and then that is just like a mouse double click. So it will now speak out. All right? One was shift, single move. So this is Akash Bunny, which is portable, and the children can take it anywhere. All right? And this is being used in ISCP school system to some extent. Here is, now these children are devoid of the opportunity of getting the edutainment, Facebook, email, all those things. So here is a special software by which they can access the same Facebook interface, of course modified with some tricks, and with which they can also access it with those switches. So the navigations and everything are enabled here. So here you can see a special wheelchair, I'm making it fast, which are voice activated, and you can raise the wheelchair, move the wheelchair left or right, like that. And access, and now one thing I just missed out, There is also a software called Sanjog, which is used in ISCP and was developed with the help of ISCP. That is where iconically the children can form. আমার শেষ হয়ে গেছে আস্তে আস্তে বলার কি হয়েছে বললি আর শেষ করে দিন হ্যাঁ তো in that what happens is you can select icons and form natural language sentences, and those are spoken out through a natural language program. Before conclusion, I'll bring in some couple of issues. Closed captioning is now, of course, there for any film. All right? For the hearing impaired, this is very much required, closed captioning. But certain things, even I would have loved if somebody from our mass communication was here, that all the web pages that we make should have alt text for images, so that when that website is displayed, corresponding to image, the description of the image should be spoken out. All right? Adoption of DAISY format, use of colors and contrast. We are very casual about using colors. But what about the people who are colorblind? I often say that red signifies something, blue signifies something, pink signifies something. Many people will not be able to distinguish between red and pink. Therefore, and there are software by which you can check whether your color distribution is user-friendly, color blindness friendly or not. So similar such protocols are there. Now I'll conclude with this, madam, for you. That is where the shoe pinches. It is not yet recognized as a research and education discipline, assistive technology. These are all done in silos, disjoint, unplanned efforts, lack of industrial interest, lack of support to industries and consumers. I fought with the ministers. They said it's a fantastic job, Professor Basu, but we cannot give money to private companies. Give it to the government companies. We have got Alimco. There's one company, Alimco, and everything comes there, and they never built anything other than wheelchair. And there was also fund mismanagement. Lack of technology awareness among the good NGOs, like ISCP and all those. They are now, ISCP has now come up a lot, and they have got now their own technologists. And I think, so I have got a possible model that I am propounding for a long time. No one listens to that. So probably you will also not listen, but let me do that. That there should be augmented alternate communication R&D centers. Institute and universities will develop the beta prototypes for that. The industries will make the actual product. That will go to the NGOs. The government should provide some funding to the NGOs, and the NGOs will give it to the user, and the government should also fund this ASC R&D centers. But unfortunately, that never works, because here, say from IIT Kharagpur, what I did, I got a lot of support from Ministry of Information Technology. I got a lot of support from Department of Science and Technology, and developed many things. But when I want to take it for deployment, they say that's not our thing. This, you have to take it to Ministry of Social Welfare. Now you go to Ministry of Social Welfare, they will say you have not developed it with our support, why should we champion this? So it is nobody's baby. Left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. Therefore, that is the state of affairs. I requested our Chancellor that can we set up such R&D center. He immediately said yes, and he has allotted space. But I have got no clue how I can get fund. So unless I get fund, I cannot employ people.
Sir,
And
what about CSR, corporate social responsibility?
bring CSR for me, I'll do it.
Yes,
Bring
we should-
CSR for
should
me.
be,
I have talked to many CSRs. They will ask you to write 45 to 90 page report. I don't have that much time. I want to work. If anybody helps me there, I'll do it.
Center is waiting, sir. We should-
Please do it. Wonderful. So that's
Yes,
somebody
this is a
heard.
Very important issue. We should take
Yeah, so and we have got space given by our chancellor, so, and some seed money, maybe I can also manage from him, not much, but that will not support. I mean, for that, if CSR is there, certainly, I have also formed a foundation, Inclusive Future Foundation, so IFF, so from where we can give it to people.
We can jointly work and see
Absolutely.
how much we can do.
Please. So with this
There's no point giving.
optimistic note from the coordinator, I end. Thank you.
I'm always optimistic.
Yes.
Well, I won't thank Professor Masu because it is his heart he spoke out. So there's no point thanking hearts because always thank mind. অনেকক্ষণ বলেছেন স্যার আমি বললে আপনি বলতে পারবেন আপনি বলতেন এই ভাই আমি আস্তে করে বলেছিলাম তাও আপনি জোরে Acha, it is my extreme pleasure and good fortune that now I introduce my student, Dr. Nandini Ghosh, who was our student at Calcutta University for Masters, and she was also in my special group. Now she's at the Institute of Development Studies. Her areas of interest are critical disability, gender studies and sociology of marginal communities, social exclusion, social movements and qualitative research methodology. She has published a monograph, Impaired Bodies, Gendered Lives, Everyday Realities of Disabled Women, in 2016, co-authored a book on domestic violence titled The Domestic Violence, Violent Domestic Law, Its Practice and Strategies of Survival in 2022 from Zuban. She has edited a volume titled Interrogating Disability in India, Theory and Practice, Springer, 2016. She also has co-authored 2 books, Prottoho Everyday Life Worlds, Dilemmas, Contestations and Negotiation, 2015, Caste and Gender in Contemporary India, Power and Privilege and Politics, Routledge, 2018, and she is widely known as working on these issues and well-known peer and also published in well-known peer-reviewed journal. Since I know Nandini for quite a long time, what I will say about Nandini is that she's a dedicated person. And probably dedicated person who belongs to a community which is excluded. So the stigma, the labeling, the aspersions, looking down are also part of her everyday struggle. That's why she could write on Everyday World. Now, the point is actually, Professor Basu, one line mentioned that elderly. The elderly people who were normal at some point of time is now not normal anymore because they are physically disabled. Mentally I give up because that has to be ascertained that way. But physically we can see a lot of people cannot walk, cannot do things, but all of normal able people are actually very much disinclined to help them. That I must say. I have seen at SNU also. Very few people come to help. Rather they will give a lecture but not help. That's the problematic part. Rather they will say you're not normal, so go out, get the hell out of here. So that happens. But that has to go. Now that Professor Basu is here, I'd like to take the opportunity that how advice, counseling and proper behavior from all communities, from non-teaching up to the administrative people is necessary in terms of having not taking people as disabled and old. We have a despise to the old people. They are good for nothing. Eta jete hobe. Amra concentrate korchi on those below 60. After 60, life stops, then we should kill all the elderly people. Taka paisha beche jabe. So আমি এখানে থামলাম, এটা একটু র্যাডিক্যাল শোনাচ্ছে তাই, আর আমার মেন্টর আমাকে ওখান থেকে এটা বলতে না করছেন, কিন্তু আমি বললাম এবং আমি বলবো, তার কারণ হচ্ছে বুড়োদেরকে খুব খারাপ করে দেখায়, বুড়ো বুড়ি। এসো নন্দিনী, ইটস অল ইয়ার্স। তুমি ওখানে বসে বলো।
Thank you. Yeah, I prefer to sit and speak. as a scholar and as an activist, the only submission I always have is that we do not practice accessible design. So our equipment is made in such a manner that it does not accommodate diversity. So সেই জন্য I would prefer to sit because behind the lectern you can hear me but not see me. So good afternoon. Yeah, I think Professor Basu, I think he set into rolling a lot of things, and I will take up some of the issues. But being a sociologist, of course, my perspective is a little different from yours. Probably complementary in certain cases, but probably also critical of what technology does or what could be the possibilities of technology. So, I mean, when you look at the topic, and I spoke with ma'am when we discussed what would be the topic. So, when you look at disability, society, culture, these three words in a continuum, and we know we have these definitions, legal definitions of disability. Now, if you look at the legal definitions of disability, they are very individualized definitions. They are not talking about society as such. And what it does is basically it locates the disability in a person. That means individually you are a person with a disability, probably because you have a impairment. Impairment is that part of the body or your mind which is not working properly. So that is where you have an impairment. But all the legal definitions, and it is true because law looks at the individual. So it is mostly looking at very individualized condition, but it is also looking at medicalized condition. So if you look at the law, very clearly all the definitions you will find is defined only in medical terms. যারা ব্লাইন্ড তাদের জন্য 20/20 ভিশন না হলে তার জন্য সে ডিসেবলড হবে, তার এই প্যারামিটারসের মধ্যে তার শোনার ক্ষমতা না হলে সে ডিসেবলড হবে। তো একেবারে আমরা মেডিকেলাইজড টার্মিনোলজি দিয়ে বেঁধে দিয়েছি যে হোয়াট ইজ টু বি কনসিডার্ড, rather who is to be considered a disabled person, not what is a disability. And that is where I think we will have to look at when we look at the elderly population also, because here we are talking in terms of functionalities, we are talking in terms of capacities, capabilities, and this is where the problem begins, because we locate it with the person and not look at the capabilities of the person as such. What the medicalized definition does is primarily, it actually establishes power relationships. It gives somebody the power to define who is to be called normal, who is to be called disabled, who is to be labeled, and who is not to be labeled. And herein, again, as a sociologist, as a disability studies scholar, I will question this category of what is normal. Because this normal is very vague continuum of capacities, of capabilities, and this normal actually is defined by what is labeled as abnormal. আমরা কিন্তু অ্যাবনর্মালটাকে দেখিয়ে বলছি এটা নর্মাল নয়, আমরা কিন্তু নর্মালটাকে কোথাও ডিফাইন করি না। যেটা অ্যাবনর্মাল নয় সেটা নর্মাল, কিন্তু অ্যাবনর্মালটা ডিফাইন্ড হচ্ছে যত ইজিলি, নর্মালটা ওরকমভাবে ডিফাইন্ড হয় না, ওটা ওই কন্টিনিউয়ামের মধ্যে ছেড়ে দেওয়া হয় যে এতটা হবে। যেরকম রাফলি 5 ফিট থেকে 6.5 ফিট অবধি হচ্ছে নর্মাল হাইট। যে 5 ফিটের কম হয়ে গেল তাকে বেটে বলা হবে, যে 6.5 ফিটের ওপরে হয়ে গেল সে অতি লম্বা, কিন্তু অতি লম্বার সেই স্টিগমা নেই যেটা বেটে মানুষের আছে। So the labeling comes with a social categorization or a social hierarchy. সেই হায়ারার্কিতে আমরা যেই মুহূর্তে মানুষকে ফেলে দিয়েছি দেখতে পারা না দেখতে পারা। চশমা পরে আমরা বলি ঠিকই যে চশমা পরি আমিও হয়তো ডিসেবলদের ক্যাটাগরিতে, না, কারণ যে একদম দেখতে পাচ্ছে না, যে সত্যি লো ভিশন, আর যে চশমা পরে ম্যানেজ করতে পারছে, সে কিন্তু নর্মালের ক্যাটাগরিতে পড়ে। যে একদম দেখতে পাচ্ছে না সে পড়ে যাচ্ছে কিন্তু ওই নট নর্মাল ক্যাটাগরিতে। সো দিস ইজ হাউ we are establishing power hierarchies by saying that this group of people or medical professionals, doctors, can define who is abnormal. The moment you have the power to define this abnormality, you also have the power to decide what is to be done with them. এই যে অপারেশন করতে হবে, অপারেশন করলে আমি আমার ফার্স্ট চাকরি ওরকম জায়গায় ছিল একটা রিহ্যাব সেন্টারে, যেখানে লোকোমোটর ডিসেবিলিটি বাচ্চারা আসতো, তাদের অপারেশন হতো, অপারেশন হয়ে আমি প্রথম যখন ঢুকলাম অ্যাজ সোশ্যাল ওয়ার্কার ওখানে, আমিও ডাক্তাররা বলে ভর্তি করে দিয়ে যান, আপনার বাচ্চা না ভালোভাবে হাঁটতে পারবে। আই অলসো গট ইট, যে ভালোভাবে বাচ্চারা হাঁটতে পারবে বিশাল ব্যাপার, বাট কথাটা হচ্ছে বাচ্চা কোনোদিনে ভালোভাবে হাঁটতে পারবে না, নট লাইক ইউ এন্ড মি। সে হাঁটতে শিখবে উইথ ক্রাচেস, উইথ ক্যালিপার্স, উইথ আ লট অফ পেন, and this pain is not figured within this disability experience, and that is where we are saying the stigma becomes so much that we want to control people's lives and bodies and decide either you become normalized or you stay at home. This is where the power hierarchy comes in. As a sociologist, primarily as a disability studies scholar, that is my interest. What are the gatekeeping procedures we are using to keep people out or to bring people in? Technology helps to bring people in, but is this technology appropriate? সব সময় কি appropriate হয়? মানে স্যার যখন বলছিলেন আমার খুবই ভালো লাগছিল, আমি জানি আইআইটিতে অনেক ভালো ভালো কাজ হয়েছে, কিন্তু এই ধরুন শহরের মানুষের যেই জিনিসগুলো দরকার আর গ্রামের মানুষের যেই জিনিসগুলো দরকার টেকনোলজি ওয়াইজ, এগুলোর মধ্যেও অনেক তফাৎ আছে, এবং সেটা অনেক সময় অ্যাড্রেসড হয় না, অনেক সময় সেটা অনেক সময় বিকজ উই অলসো ডোন্ট নো হোয়াট ইজ দ্য রিয়ালিটি আউট দেয়ার, সেটা আমাদেরও খানিকটা কনসেপশনের ইয়ে। তো সেখান থেকে ম্যাম অলরেডি বলেছেন সোশ্যাল মডেলের কথা, সো আই উইল নট delve a lot on it, but basically সোশ্যাল মডেলে যেটা ইয়ে চিন্তাধারা ছিল যে লেট আস চেঞ্জ দ্য সোশ্যাল অ্যারেঞ্জমেন্টস, এই যে একটা র্যাম্প থাকা বা একটা লিফট থাকা, এটা ইজিয়েস্ট, দিস ইজ দ্য ইজিয়েস্ট অ্যাকচুয়ালি। দ্য মোর ডিফিকাল্ট ইজ দ্য মাইন্ডসেটস দ্যাট উই হ্যাভ, যে আমি যখন ভাবছি যে ও ব্লাইন্ড, ও কি পড়তে পারবে নাকি, ও কি পড়াশোনা করতে পারবে না, ও চাকরি করতে পারবে নাকি, ওকে চাকরি দিলে আমাকে তো ওকে মানে সাবসিডাইজ করার মতো, মানে একটা লোককে মাইনে দেবো, দিয়ে বলবো তোমাকে আসতে হবে না, তুমি বাড়িতেই থাকো। অ্যান্ড দিস হ্যাপেন্স ইন ইন্ডিয়া। প্রচুর ডিসেবলড মানুষ যারা চাকরি পান, তাদের অফিস থেকে তাদের বলে দেওয়া হয় বাড়িতে থাকো, দিনের দিন এসে মাইনে নিয়ে যাবে, তার বাদে আসতে। এটা জানার পর্যন্ত চেষ্টা করা হয় না যে সে কি পারে কি পারে না, এবং তাকে কতটুকু সাহায্য দিবে, যেটা আমরা ইউএনসিআরবিটির ভাষায় রিজনেবল অ্যাকোমোডেশন বলি, কতটুকু সাহায্য দিবে সে হয়তো আর 5 জনের মতোই কাজ করতে পারবে। There's an assumption of incapability is equal to disability. এই assumptionটা যখন আমরা কালচারালি ব্রেক না করতে পারবো, এই স্টিরিওটাইপসগুলো যতক্ষণ না আমরা ব্রেক করতে পারবো, ততক্ষণ কিন্তু আমরা এইটা ডিসেবিলিটিকে মেইনস্ট্রিমে আনাটা আমাদের পক্ষে ডিফিকাল্ট হবে। অ্যান্ড আই অ্যাম নট টকিং অ্যাবাউট নর্মালাইজিং ডিসেবিলিটি, আই অ্যাম সেইং অ্যাকসেপ্ট ডাইভার্সিটি, অ্যাকসেপ্ট দ্যাট পিপল আর ডিফারেন্ট। সবাইকে একরকমভাবেই কথা বলতে হবে কেউ বলেনি, সবাইকে একরকমভাবেই বসতে হবে, হাঁটতে হবে, চলতে হবে কেউ বলেনি, বাট অ্যাকসেপ্ট দ্যাট পিপল ক্যান বি ডিফারেন্ট অ্যান্ড মেক arrangements for this difference. So you could have, say, 2 low chairs in this room, 2 chairs that help people like me to sit properly. There could be certain arrangements that you make for so যেটা বললেন যে অডিও ভিজুয়াল যখন আমরা বলছি, প্রত্যেকটা জায়গায় যেখানে যেখানে টেক্সট আছে ক্যান বি হ্যাভ আ অডিও ডেসক্রিপশন। হ্যাঁ, তো এই ধরনের হয়তো ছোট ছোট টেকনোলজিক্যাল চেঞ্জেস যেটা আমরা অ্যারেঞ্জ করতে পারি, যেটা কিন্তু মানুষকে ইনক্লুড করতে হেল্প করবে। মোর থিওরিটিক্যালি ডিসেবিলিটি স্টাডিজ একটা বড় কথা আছে, অ্যান্ড আই কাম ব্যাক টু দিস বিবি ম্যাম যেটা বলছিলেন যে kill us at 60, because after 60 when you retire you are presumed that you are no longer productive, so if you are not productive you are of no use. Ma'am, at 60 if you are feeling this, think of people who have heard it all their lives, ছোট্টবেলা থেকে শুনেছে যে প্রোডাক্টিভ নও, তোমার দ্বারা কিছু হবে না, তুমি তো ডিপেন্ডেন্ট অন আস, তোমাকে মানে এই যে this entire political economy of capitalism which says that you have to be productive, otherwise your life is not worth living. But every life is worth living. For those parents যার বাচ্চা একদম হয়তো শুয়ে আছে, কিছুই করছে না, just grunting, that life is also worth living. So when we put everything on this, you know, the functionality, the productivity of people, I think somewhere we are not accommodating diversity. আমরা যদি চাইল্ডহুডের ডিপেন্ডেন্সকে অ্যাকোমোডেট করতে পারি, আমরা যদি এল্ডারলি ডিপেন্ডেন্সকে অ্যাকোমোডেট করতে পারি, তাহলে ডিসেবিলিটি ডিপেন্ডেন্সকেও অ্যাকোমোডেট করা যায়, বিকজ এভরি লাইফ হ্যাজ আ ভ্যালু, অ্যান্ড দ্যাট ইজ ওয়ের দ্য হোল থিং বিকামস lot of lopsided if we are saying that some lives are certainly not worth living.
আমি জিজ্ঞেস করে দিচ্ছি, তাহলে ধরুন এই দায়িত্বটা কেউ একজন করতে পারবে, তার কোনো রকম একটা ডিসেবিলিটি আছে, সোকল ডিসেবিলিটি আছে, অর্থাৎ নর্মাল অ্যাবনর্মাল এই যে ডিসেবিলিটি তাহলে আছে, সেটা বোঝাবার দায়িত্ব কার কার? বাড়ি থেকে শুরু হয় যে তুমি এটা কিন্তু করতে পারো, তুমি এটা কিন্তু করতে পারো, এই শিক্ষাটা বাড়ি থেকে শুরু হতে পারে, তারপর বাড়ির বাইরে স্কুলে হতে পারে, অন্য জায়গায় হতে পারে। দ্যাট ইউ ক্যান ডু দ্যাট। কারণ ভেতর থেকে জিনিসটা হচ্ছে না ওরা পারবে, এই জিনিসটা যদি ঢোকানো যায় তাহলে যদি অ্যাওয়ারনেসটা, যেটা অ্যাওয়ারনেস কথা উনি বারবার বলছেন, যেটা সেটা একই সঙ্গে সবাই সমান, সবাই করতে পারবে, তার কোনো ডিসেবিলিটি নেই, এই কথাটাকে বোঝানোর কোনো উপায় নেই।
আছে, নিশ্চয়ই আছে, কিন্তু সেটার জন্য কি স্যার কালচারাল,
আমাকে বলুন যে কোনো একজন যে মেন্টালি সেরকম ভাবে নয়, সে কি করে এত ভালো গান শেখে? এটা খুব চালু একটা জিনিস আছে যে তারা খুব ভালো গান শেখে, কি করে হয়? একটা ভীষণভাবে সিস্টেমেটিক একটা সায়েন্স।
সেটাই তো আমি বলছি স্যার, দ্য প্রবলেম ইজ যে আমরা যতদিন না আমাদের এই কালচারাল স্টিরিওটাইপস অ্যারাউন্ড ডিসেবিলিটিকে ভাঙতে পারবো, আমি বলছি দ্য প্রসেস, ইফ ইউ লুক এট দ্য লজ, লিগাল কেসেস দ্যাট হ্যাভ কাম আপ গত কিছু বছরে, অ্যাটলিস্ট 10 বছর ধরে যে লিগাল কেসেসগুলো চলছে, প্রচুর মহিলা কোর্টে গিয়ে পেটিশন করছেন যে আমার আনবর্ন চাইল্ডকে আমি অ্যাবর্ট করতে চাই। হ্যাঁ, কেন করতে চাই? বিকজ অমুক ডাক্তারের কাছে আমি টেস্ট করে আমি জানতে পেরেছি এই বাচ্চাটা abnormal তৈরি হবে, and the language that is used is terrible. The child will be, a group of doctors have said, the child will be born a vegetable, the child has no prospects of developing. How is a doctor able to say যে একটা বাচ্চা ভেজিটেবল হয়ে জন্মাবে এবং সে ভেজিটেবল হয়েই থেকে যাবে? বিকজ ডিসেবিলিটি নিয়ে আমরা যারা কাজ করছি, উই নো, অ্যান্ড UNCRPDও এটা বলছে যে ডিসেবিলিটি ইভলভিং কনসেপ্ট, কে কত দূর যাবে will depend on the individual but also on the context in which they are located. No, but that is an assumption, and that is the point that I am coming to, because these assumptions that we have, যে কে পারবে আর কে পারবে না সেটা দিয়ে, কিন্তু আপনি স্যার যেটা বলছেন তাতে সেটার একমাত্র কারণ হচ্ছে ধরুন বাবা মা শুরু করবে। হ্যাঁ, যেদিন আমি জন্মালাম,
এই পয়েন্টে যাচ্ছি, এর ভিতরে জেনেটিক কাউন্সেলিং একটা, কারণ থ্যালাসেমিয়া হতে পারে, হবে, বা থ্যালাসেমিক আছে, কারণ সিনড্রোম, ডাউন সিনড্রোম আছে, এই জিনিসগুলোকে জেনেটিক্যালি দেখার একটা দরকার আছে, সেটা ক্লিনিক্যাল ডায়াগনোসিস হতে পারে, হওয়া উচিত। একই সঙ্গে ভেজিটেবল হয়ে যাবে, সেটা তো না ফিজিক্যাল ডিসেবিলিটি এবং এই ডিসেবিলিটিটা এক নয়, এই জিনিসটা ডিসটিংশন করার দরকার আছে।
আমি বলছি টেস্টিং করার দরকার আছে, but that does not mean that you will kill the child before the child is born, because thalassemia can be managed. If I know, I am conscious and I know what are the possibilities of managing it. হ্যাঁ, নিশ্চয়ই, কেন করা যাবে না, নিশ্চয়ই ম্যানেজ করা সম্ভব। and আমার কাছে every life has value, and the choice of, মানে এটা কিন্তু একটা from a feminist perspective, আমরা যারা নারী আন্দোলনের সাথে আছি, আমরা সবচেয়ে আগে লড়েছিলাম যে মেয়েদের অ্যাবর্শন রাইটস হওয়া উচিত, কিন্তু সেই অ্যাবর্শন রাইটসই যখন বলছে যে ডিসেবলড ফিটাস হলে কোনো পারমিশন দরকার নেই, যখন তখন তুমি ডিস্ট্রয় করে দিতে পারে, সেইখানে আমাদের প্রবলেম আছে, বিকজ উই থিঙ্ক দ্যাট এভরি ডিসেবলড ফিটাস হ্যাজ আ ইকুয়াল রাইট টু সার্ভাইভ, and these are very cultural issues that need to be talked about. These are choices that we make, and I am aware, আমার পক্ষে এই জ্ঞানটা দেওয়াটা খুব সুবিধে হয়তো, ইজি হয়তো, যে এভরি চাইল্ড মাস্ট বি বর্ন, যার যেই বাড়িতে জন্মাচ্ছে সেই মা বাবা স্ট্রাগলের ব্যাপারে আমি অ্যাওয়্যার, বাট আই এম অলসো অ্যাওয়্যার দ্যাট বিকজ অফ দি নেগেটিভ অ্যাটিটিউডস যেই দিন বাচ্চাটা জন্মালো সেই বাড়িতে, সেই দিন থেকে আশেপাশের লোকেরা সবাই মাদার ব্লেমিংয়ে লেগে পড়লো, মায়ের জন্য নিশ্চয়ই এরকম হয়েছে, এবং অল কাইন্ডস অফ সুপারস্টিশনস অ্যান্ড আদার কাইন্ড অফ আইডিয়াস। মানে তুমি চুল খুলে নিশ্চয়ই পুকুর ধারে গেছিলে পূর্ণিমা রাতে, তাই তোমার বাচ্চা এরকম হলো। মানে amazing superstitions you can hear, but the other side of it is যে তোমার মাথায় আকাশ ভেঙে পড়েছে, এবার তুমি কি করবে এই বাচ্চাটিকে নিয়ে। এই যে because our doctors are part of the same social system, our teachers are part of the same social system, যারা মনে করে এরা কিছু করতে পারবে না, এবং যেহেতু এরা করতে পারবে না তাই জন্য এদের lives are not worth living. Yes sir.
Would the situation be somewhat different if we could create a lot of infrastructure where support can be given to rearing up such children? সেটা তো আমাদের এখানে আজও হলো না, in spite of different movements, feminist movements, technological development, এইটা এখনো হলো না। অথচ বিদেশে এটা হয়ে গেছে, বিদেশে কিন্তু বাচ্চাকে নিয়ে ওরা অতটা ভাবে না।
Definitely.
এইটা কিন্তু আমরা এখনো করে উঠলাম না, কেউ করলো না, because no one will take the pain, as you say, in a capitalist society without the tangible profit that they. কিন্তু this is a welfare thing. এই welfare thing এর যে একটা intangible profit আছে,
সেটা কেউ ভাবে না।
এইটা এখানে আমার দেশে ভাবনাটা
একেবারে। এবং যেটা আমার মনে হয় যে হচ্ছে না একদম তা না, ইদানিং কালে কিছু কিছু ওই ডিস্ট্রিক্ট লেভেলে ডিস্ট্রিক্ট আর্লি এডুকেশন সেন্টার্স, ডিস্ট্রিক্ট আর্লি ইন্টারভেনশন সেন্টার্স, তারপরে এখন এই যে আপনাদের যেটা মোবাইল মেডিকেল ভ্যানস শুরু হয়েছে, তাতে স্ক্রিনিংটা হচ্ছে, অ্যাটলিস্ট স্ক্রিনিংটা হচ্ছে, আইডেন্টিফিকেশনটা হচ্ছে, তারপরে রেফারেল হচ্ছে। রেফারেলে অনেক সময় না না রুরাল এরিয়াতে হচ্ছে। হ্যাঁ, আমি উড়িষ্যা, বিহার, ঝাড়খণ্ডে দেখেছি। হ্যাঁ, আমি উড়িষ্যা, বিহার, ঝাড়খণ্ড দেখেছি, মানে সাউথে তো ডেফিনেটলি হচ্ছে। আই উডন্ট বি এবল টু সে মাচ অ্যাবাউট দ্য নর্দার্ন স্টেটস। Orissa is doing really well, but Bihar, Jharkhandeও আছে, I know, because I know people who are working in those centers. But what I want to highlight here is, if you want to understand really the experience of disability, you also have to try to understand how the state can come in, because now capitalism and the state are so interlinked. So the state has to come in and set up mechanisms by which we can make lives worthwhile. এবং ওই যে ইন্টারভেনশনটার কথা স্যার বলছেন, এই যে ইন্টারভেনশনটা আমরা যদি সবার কাছে অ্যাটলিস্ট অ্যাভেলেবল করতে পারি, দেন উই উইল নো হাউ মেনি পিপল রিয়েলি ক্যান অ্যাডভান্স। বেশি অ্যাওয়ারনেসের কথা যখন উনি বলছিলেন প্রফেসর বাসু, ইট ইজ ট্রু, লোকেরা জানে না কোথায় পাওয়া যায়। লোকেরা জানতে পারলেও সেগুলো সবসময় আরবান এরিয়াজে হয়। গ্রামের একটি মানুষ তার নিজের রোজগার ফেলে দিয়ে বাচ্চাকে নিয়ে ছুটে কতদিন আসতে পারবেন? একদিন আসবেন, দুদিন আসবেন, তার বেশি আসতে পারবেন না। তো এই যে অপারেশনাল ইস্যুসগুলো আছে, যেগুলো কিন্তু খুব প্রবলেম্যাটিক। ইন্ডিয়াতে তার সাথে হচ্ছে এই মানে ক্যাপিটালিজম ছাড়াও আমাদের যে রিলিজিয়াস আইডিয়াসগুলো আছে, তাই না? যে এটা পাপ করেছো তাই জন্য এরকম হয়েছে, এবং দিস কন্ট্রোল অফ রিলিজন over how disability is defined is something that is more problematic.
We are asking from state, neoliberal capitalism. আগে যদি বা স্টেট কিছু করতো, এখন তো সে সব কিছু ছেড়ে দিয়েছে, যে ইন্ডিভিজুয়াল পারলো না তো মরে গেল। আর আমাদের নিউলিবারাল স্টেট কিন্তু সাংঘাতিক। ও রাম মন্দির হবে,
না রাম মন্দিরের বাইরে ডিসেবলরা ভিক্ষা করবে, কি আছে? আমাদের দয়া, ওই যে দিব্যাংজন, the problem with the term divyang that we disability activists have is you are saying I am part of God. তবে গড দেখে নেবে, তোমার তো দেখার দরকার নেই। দিস ইজ দ্য ইনহেরেন্ট আন্ডারলাইং আর্গুমেন্ট, অ্যান্ড দ্যাট ইজ ওয়ে দ্য দিব্যাংজন থিং ইজ টোটালি আনঅ্যাকসেপ্টেবল। অ্যান্ড যত দিন যাচ্ছে আমরা তো সোশ্যাল মুভমেন্টসে বলছি যে আস্ক দ্য পিপল ইউ আর টকিং অ্যাবাউট। বাট কেউ কি আমাদের জিজ্ঞেস করেছিল, ডিসেবল মানুষদের জিজ্ঞেস করেছিল যে তোমাকে একটা দিব্যাং মেডিকেল দেবো, তোমরা অ্যাকসেপ্ট করবে? নো ওয়ান বদার্ড টু আস্ক আস। সো দিস this taking up the narrative by somebody else is something that is really a problem. কিছু কিছু জিনিস আই থিঙ্ক, আমি বেশিক্ষণ কথা বলবো না, বাট কিছু কিছু জিনিস আমার যেটা বলার, বিশেষ করে অ্যাটিটিউডসের ব্যাপারে, হোয়াট ইজ লোকেটেড উইদিন দ্য কালচার অ্যান্ড উইদিন দ্য সোশ্যাল, basically is the fact that almost everybody in society, also because we have not been exposed to persons with disabilities, we do not know how to interact with persons with disabilities. এবং ডিসেবিলিটির আর একটা প্রবলেম, যেটা এগেন প্রফেসর বাসু যেটা বলছিলেন, ইট ইজ নট আ হোমোজেনাস ক্যাটেগরি। মানে যদি আমরা শিডিউল কাস্ট বলি অ্যাজ এ মাইনরিটি আইডেন্টিটি, সেখানে একটা হোমোজেনাইজেশন অফ এক্সপিরিয়েন্সেস আছে, কিন্তু ডিসেবিলিটির ক্ষেত্রে যিনি ব্লাইন্ড আর যিনি শুনতে পান না আর যার হাঁটা চলার অসুবিধা আছে, প্রত্যেকের কিন্তু এক্সপিরিয়েন্সগুলো ডিফারেন্ট। সো হোয়াট উই হ্যাভ ডান ইন, হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ, না কিন্তু আমি যেটা না না, কিন্তু the homogeneity of experiences, মানে when you talk of interventions, যেটা প্রফেসর বাসু বলছিলেন যে আমি ব্লাইন্ডদের জন্য ইন্টারভেনশন যেটা ডিজাইন করছি সেটা কিন্তু ইউনিভার্সালি অ্যাপ্লাই টু অল ডিসেবল পিপল নয়। সো এভরি ক্যাটাগরির জন্য the creamy layer is a different, within disabled people also there's a creamy layer, and there would always be a creamy layer in any marginalized group that we are talking. Should I stop? I'll just take 5 minutes because কয়েকটা জিনিস আমার খুব মানে স্ট্রাইকিংলি মনে হয়, যেটা ডিসেবিলিটির ক্ষেত্রে আমরা সবসময় বলি যে as I said different experiences but the same discrimination. আমার এডুকেশনে আমাকে ঢুকতে দেওয়া হচ্ছে না, সেটা ডিসক্রিমিনেশন, কিন্তু আমার এডুকেশনে ঢুকলে আমার need আর Alifia need is different. Okay, so the accommodation is different, but the discrimination is the same because the same doors are closed for both of us. So this is where we have to peg the category of disability and discrimination when we are talking about it. আর যেটা মোস্টলি এই ডিসক্রিমিনেশনটা হয় কাইন্ড অফ লাইক কাস্ট অ্যান্ড ট্রাইব ডিসক্রিমিনেশন, সেটা হচ্ছে যে উই রিয়েলি ডোন্ট বিলিভ দে ক্যান। যেটা এখনো এই যে শিডিউল কাস্ট নিয়ে, শিডিউল ট্রাইব নিয়ে যে ডিসকাশনটা চলছে, মেরিটোক্রেসি, বাট দ্য পয়েন্ট ইজ, are we allowing them, do we believe that they can have merit, do we believe that they can succeed? If I believe, then I will make those arrangements to enable them to participate within the education system. আর ছোট্ট ছোট্ট দুটো কথা, মানে ইউনিভার্সাল ডিজাইনের কথা আমরা সবসময় বলি, ইউনিভার্সাল ডিজাইন ইজ ওয়ান অফ দ্য ওয়েজ, and herein I think that organizations, institutions can take the lead by setting examples যে এইভাবে করা যেতে পারে। আর প্রফেসর বাসুকে একটা ছোট্ট কথা বলবো, ওই TCS এর কথা আপনি বললেন না, আমি it is good, yes, they do employ a lot of people with disabilities, but unfortunately they do not accommodate the needs of these people. অনেকেই আমাদের বলেছেন যে TCS এ জয়েন করেছিলাম, ছেড়ে দিতে বাধ্য হয়েছি। কেন? ঢোকার দরজাটা যে হেভি কাচের, ওইটা ঠেলে ঢোকার মতো ক্ষমতা আমার নেই, বা কাচ ছেড়ে দিয়ে যদি ওটা ঠেলতে যাই তাহলে আমি নিজে পড়ে যাব।
এইগুলো কিন্তু যদি কেউ আপনাদের অর্গানাইজেশন থেকে পয়েন্ট আউট করেন না,
আচ্ছা,
I think the Tatas are the only organization I find in India যারা চেষ্টা করবে এই
হ্যাঁ, মানে আমরা বলেছিলাম যে না, হয়তো না,
এটা পয়েন্ট আউট করে দেবেন, আমি একটা ট্রাই করব।
ওকে, আমি আপনাকে রিটেন একটা রিপ্রেজেন্টেশন তাহলে দিয়ে দেব।
আপনি এখানে একটু ট্রাই করবেন, কারণ এই দরজাগুলো খুব খায়।
আমাদের এখানে ডিসেবল
না, ডিসেবল
আমার কাছে পয়েন্ট হচ্ছে দ্য ডিমান্ড
ডিসেবল লেভেল হতে হবে, দরজা ঠেলতে পারছি না, এত মোটা দরজা করার দরকার, কাকে বন্ধ করা ছেড়ে গেছে
না, ব্যাপারটা হচ্ছে যে ডিসেবলড আর নন ডিসেবলড, ইট শুড বি ইউনিভার্সাল ডিজাইন।
এখানে না
একদম
অ্যাজ আ ইউনিভার্সাল ডিজাইন আমি একসময় পড়িয়েছি, আমার সেটা থেকে একটা প্রশ্নের মুখোমুখি হতে হয়। ইটস আ ডিসেবিলিটির ক্ষেত্রেও দেখবেন একটা স্পেকট্রাম আছে, হ্যাঁ, মানে একটা পার্টিকুলার ক্যাটাগরি অফ ডিসেবিলিটি, ব্লাইন্ড, লো ভিশন একটা হয়ে গেল একটা ক্যাটাগরি, কিন্তু ধরুন মেন্টাল বা ইভেন স্পিচ ইম্পেয়ার, সেখানে একটা স্পেকট্রাম আছে, ডিজাইনটা সবার জন্য ক্যাটার করা, মানে ওই রেজলিউশনে করা।
বুঝতে পারছি, but maybe that is why we need to sit around the same table and have a discussion. I want to end with just one premise, saying that this ideology of the normal, which I am questioning all the time, because I think there shouldn't be this conceptualization of a normal, because this normal is basically again a idealization of the characteristics that we want to see in people. ইট ইজ নট নেসেসারিলি দেয়ার। কোনো একটা মানুষের মধ্যে পুরো সবকটা নর্মালের ক্যারেক্টারিস্টিক্স কিন্তু নেই, কিন্তু তাদের যখন আমরা অ্যাকোমোডেট করতে পারি, তো যার মধ্যে হয়তো বেশি নেই তাকে কেন অ্যাকোমোডেট করতে পারবো না, আমার কাছে এই জিনিসটা খুব মনে হয়। এবং দ্যাট ইজ ওয়াই লেট আস অল কালেক্টিভলি কোয়েশ্চেন দ্য নর্মাল ওয়্যার এভার উই আর। থ্যাংক ইউ।
আমার একটাই বক্তব্য হবে যে এই কনসেপ্টটা তখনই আনা সম্ভব যখন কালচারালি আমরা কেন ওয়েলফেয়ার স্টেটে থাকার দরকার সেইটা অ্যাকসেপ্ট করি। মুশকিলটা হচ্ছে যতদিন পর্যন্ত সেটাকে না অ্যাকসেপ্ট করা হচ্ছে ততদিন পর্যন্ত এই ফাইন টিউনিংটা কিচ্ছুতেই আসবে না। কারণ যে নর্মাল আর অ্যাবনর্মাল আমি কখন বলতে শুরু করছি, যখন আমি ধরে নিচ্ছি যে এই লোকগুলোকে বাদ দিয়ে ওই লোকগুলোকে যদি আমি আলাদা করে দিতে পারি তাহলেই পারহ্যাপস উই জেনারেট এনাফ বেনিফিট ফ্রম দ্য সোসাইটি। এটা হচ্ছে বেসিক প্রেমিস অফ ওয়াই উই টক ইন টার্মস অফ দ্য নর্মালিটি। কিন্তু যখন আমরা ধরে নেব যে এভরিওয়ান ইজ পার্ট অফ দ্যাট সোসাইটি, তখন কিন্তু ওই নর্মাল অ্যাবনর্মালিটি ডিস্টিংশনটা থাকবে না। জাস্ট ইট উইল বি এ কোয়েশ্চেন অফ ডিগ্রি অফ effectiveness in a particular area, হ্যাঁ, যেটা we shall be discussing। এবং তখন ওই যেটা প্রফেসর বাসুও বলেছেন একটা গ্রেডেড লেভেলে আমরা ভাবতে পারবো। সুতরাং primarily it all boils down to the cultural milieu in which we grow up। এবং ভারতবর্ষের ক্ষেত্রে এইখানে যেটা what you have also pointed out, যে রিলিজিওসিটি দিয়ে অনেক সময় ওটাকে অবসকিউর করবার চেষ্টা করা হয় যাতে আমাদের সোসাইটাল যে নেসেসিটি অফ ডুইং থিংস সেটাকে অবভিয়েট করা। সো ইটস এ মাচ বিগার ইস্যু ইন টার্মস অফ কনফ্রন্টিং। মানে যেমন এডুকেশনের ক্ষেত্রে আমার কাছে যেটা বারবার মনে হয় যে the state is abdicating its responsibility increasingly so.
So too for welfare. So too for welfare.
And it is even more so for the welfare. আমি বলবো যে এডুকেশনের ক্ষেত্রে তবু একটা মাউন্টিং হয় যে আমরা এইভাবে করবো। সোশ্যাল ওয়েলফেয়ারের ক্ষেত্রে তা নয়, যারা ধরেই নেওয়া হয় যে সোশ্যাল ওয়েলফেয়ারের এক্সপেন্ডিচারটা ইজ অ্যান এক্সট্রা এক্সপেন্ডিচার যেইটা আমরা এদের ওই দয়ার থেকে করে দিচ্ছি। এটা যে নেসেসিটি ফর দ্য সার্ভাইভাল অফ দ্য সোসাইটি এট লার্জ, সেই অ্যাকসেপ্টেন্সটা কিন্তু আমরা যত দিন যাচ্ছে দূরে সরে যাচ্ছি।
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Should I go to because let Alifa speak, then we can have.
If maybe we can get to the question.
I'm really proud and humbled to introduce Dr. Alifa Tundawala, who is now an assistant professor of political science at Savitri Girls College since 2007.
She was also guest faculty in the Department of Political Science, University of Kolkata, Calcutta, from 2012 to 18. As a political science is just, our sister discipline, so I knew about her. When Shampa told me, then I remembered that I knew about her. I would say that I don't know, I never believed in normal, because normal is capitalist modernity, nothing else. You universalize because you need to universalize to exploit. Working class, I don't believe in that. There are differences and different needs. And difference is what we should celebrate in human civilization. That is the basic premise of human civilization. So Alifa actually graduated from Loreto College, completed her MA from Calcutta University. That's when also I hear, I was there, Alifa, when you were actually studying. I was there from 1989 to 2017. She completed her doctoral studies in political science, also from University of Calcutta in 2011. Her topic was the Muslim search for identity in contemporary West Bengal, and her supervisor was a good friend of mine, Bonita Elias. Dr. Tundawala has delivered talks and presented papers at various national and international seminars and conferences across the country. She has edited several seminar proceedings, contributed articles to prestigious international journals like South Asia Research and to online international magazines such as Himal South Asia. She is the recipient of the Role Model Award for the Disabled 2003-04. Actually, here I am back. I'm feeling bad. She should not be the role model of the disabled. She is the one of the role model of everybody. How many able-bodied people, so to speak, has done work like her? Very few. So this is where I get stuck, that this is how it is called by the Department of Women and Child Welfare. Actually, this is belittling her award, saying that she is from a group of people and that's all. That should not be done. See, we have all in our, those who think we are physically able. Mentally we cannot see, so we do not. So when we see, then we say that. We say that you are not normal, you should not be in the class, get out of the class. We do that. And we often say that this is actually what we should do. And when we say disabled and able-bodied students, disabled and able-bodied teachers, we don't talk about able-bodied teachers and able-bodied teachers, able-minded teachers and able-minded teachers. So what is stupidity is, I'm sorry to use this word, but this is, not only that, she was award from NSS for best program, Kwame Ekta award for education, and West Bengal State NSS award for best program officer. She is the NSS program officer in her college. So what's the disability here? I find none. So telling her that she is disabled just because she cannot see like we do, I'd say we may be all blind because we don't see what we are supposed to see, which we're supposed to see and do. She is not that. She doesn't have that ability. So what? She has more abilities than we all, able-bodied with two bloody eyes, we can see it. We don't see. So there is that problem, what Nandini tried to tell culture, what Ashok Thakur tried to tell. But I would say this is a very potent weapon of discrimination and exploitation. And we would like to keep it that way. That's why we reserve. Reservation should be based on economic position, not on any Dun caste, which is not even an Indian word. So tribe, not an Indian. There was no tribe in Europe. Have they been given the reservation? No. I'm sorry, here I disagree. It should be based on your economic position, whether you can afford access and reach the access. So we do reservation for creamy layers also everywhere. We shouldn't do that. I'm against any reservation except economic. All you need is the access to the resources, not going entry to some temple. We are most bothered with entry to temples and these places. That's why we miss people like Alifa Tundawala. And I really think, Alifa, that it has been really a proud moment for my life at the end that I am able to call you and listen to you. I'm really, really proud. I cannot express actually, but inside me knows that. So it's all yours, Alifa. Should I give you you have the hand microphone. Please go ahead. I kept you last, not because of this. I kept you last because I wanted. আপনি বসে বলতে পারেন। You prefer that? তাহলে একটা কাজ করা যায়। এই মাইক্রোফোনটা ওকে দেওয়া যাবে? না, অত দূর যাবে না মাইক্রোফোন। না, এই মাইক্রোফোনটা ওকে দেওয়া যাবে না।
Hello, hello. Yeah, am I audible? Yes. A very warm good afternoon to everybody. Respected Pro Vice Chancellor Sir, Professor Mulabhadra, Dr. Nandini Ghosh, Shampadi, and the August gathering. I was extremely excited to be here today as part of this discussion forum.
Go on saying, it's all right. They're giving you a desk mic so that you do not have to hold.
And I consider it.
We can hear you.
Okay. I consider it to be my proud privilege that I have been given this opportunity to be a part of this forum. I really convey my heartfelt appreciation and gratitude to Professor Bhadra and to all the organizers of this ADDA BAITHAK, and also especially to Shampadi for referring my name. So before I foray into the issue that we have taken up for discussion, I would like to make two very humble submissions. First, that I am not a disability rights scholar or activist. That has never been my forte. So I cannot, or rather I dare not, engage into any kind of complicated or sophisticated conceptualizing or theorizing of the issue. And more so because, and more so in the presence of two outstanding luminaries, two experts who have touched me so deeply. So what I will do instead is share some very simple, general observations and reflections, juxtaposing them with some of my own personal experiences as a woman with a disability.
Please continue, please.
Second, I teach political science in a college affiliated to the University of Calcutta, and I have been doing so for more than 16 years now. But my research interest lies in community and identity studies. I've worked on religious minorities. And I have always taken the liberal identitarian position, advocating the right to be different. But over a period of time, I have come to realize that perhaps this is weak politics. It is leading us nowhere. Almost 15, 20 years back, when the postmodern project was in vogue, with all its emphasis on multiplicity and diversity and plurality, identity politics was progressive thinking, and I happily embraced it. But now I feel, what has it given us? How far have we been able to traverse the road to equality and freedom for all that all of us here, at least the seriously thinking people, are endeavoring to achieve? Even after 75 years of political independence and sovereignty, we are still living in a society where the birth of a girl child is frowned upon. We are still living in a society where a little child from a low caste is beaten to death for the crime of drinking water from the pot that was meant for his upper caste teacher. We are still living in a society where our understanding of disability is guided by the medical model, in which disability is demonized, denigrated with pejorative vocabulary, as an impairment, as a very big loss to society, a misfortune, an individual tragedy, a divine punishment for some past sin, an embarrassment to apologize for. And even today, we are talking in terms of organizing awareness sessions and sensitization programs to generate knowledge about disability. I have been working in this college for more than 16 years now, but I still have colleagues who would say, make her quickly sit down or else she will fall down. Make her sit on the chair, otherwise she will fall down. I have colleagues who are blanketly refusing to do invigilation duty with me simply because they would have to sign more top sheets. And when I raise my voice for exemption from invigilation duty and an alternative duty allocation, some well-meaning colleagues would say, the institution will suffer. And it leaves me wondering whether my sitting idle for 3 hours in the examination hall, like a statue, virtually doing nothing, is a loss to the institution? Or is the institution losing out on a potential employee with capacity to do more creative and constructive work by not allocating alternative tasks? So it really pains me to think that we are still, these are the little things that we still have to fight for. So therefore I feel that what we now need is a radical, transformative politics couched in the language of universality and solidarity, so that each one of us can participate in it, regardless of who we are, regardless of where we come from, regardless of whether we are the affected ones or not, whether we are the marginalized or the vulnerable or the weak ones or not. I remember in my first conversation with Professor Bhadra, she had told me that when she proposed, I mean, there are still people who would say, why a discussion on disability? It is for the disabled alone. So it is high time we realize that this is not an issue for the disabled alone. It is a social issue concerning each and every one of us here who want to see a more egalitarian tomorrow. Having said this, I come to my own example. As a person with a disability, I have n number of concerns, beginning from education to employment, healthcare services, mobility and accessibility, relationships with friends, family members, right to marriage and motherhood rights, and of course, decision making. Time may not permit me to raise each one of these points today. So I begin with, let me focus on education and employment. I was born in a very small but burgeoning town called Sitpur in Gujarat, to parents who were not so educated. When I was 1 year old, my parents noticed that there was something wrong with me. I was not responding to objects when shown to me, as other children of my age would do. And I would keep staring at the source of light. And the moment I was taken away from the source of light, I would panic and wail. So they took me to a doctor in Mumbai who diagnosed me with retinitis pigmentosa. It is a genetic eye condition. And he advised my parents, and did so very firmly, that since this is an incurable eye condition and nobody is in the capacity to restore my eyesight, my parents would rather focus on educating me and make sure I received the best education possible, preferably in an inclusive environment. I'm extremely grateful to this doctor for the advice that he gave to my parents, because I know of a friend in whose case, with a similar eye condition, in whose case the doctor had advised her parents to marry her off as early as possible before her eyesight deteriorated, because this condition is progressively degenerative. My parents managed to send me to one of Kolkata's best schools, I would say, Loreto. And I'm extremely proud of the fact that, and I'm grateful to the institution for the kind of support that I received there as a student. Initially, my teachers were confused because they had never handled such a case before, but they were always there for me, always there beside me with a helping hand. They would make me sit near the window because then I could see in sunlight. If I could see the blackboard, fine. If not, they would read out to me what was written on the blackboard. There were times when my eyesight began to deteriorate. I would write, but there would be no ink in my pen and I would not know. My teachers would then read from the impression that was left on the paper. So this is the kind of support I received there. I had a friend who would read out to me day in and day out. She opted for the same subjects as mine. She would always score less than me, but she would never feel envious. And when I would receive certificates for my achievement, the joy could be seen on her face. Of course, there were others too who would laugh at me, make fun of me, pass nasty comments. But then I had a principal who was my source of strength. She said to me, if there is anybody here in this institution who makes you cry, just come and tell me, I will throw them out of my school. So whatever I am today is because what my institution has made me into. Everybody is not so fortunate. My brother, who is 10 years younger than me, with the same eye condition, he was not so fortunate. We had to literally go from school to school begging to get him admitted, but nobody was willing to take him. One of the principals said to me, we have sharp furniture with sharp edges, which could hurt your brother. Who will take the responsibility? I was too small then to answer back, but today I would have said, why do you have furniture with sharp edges in the first place in a school setting which is meant for children? So left with no other option, we were forced to send him to a budding community school, a madrasa, where he studied only with 6 to 8 students in a class. And it is only because of his perseverance, his determination, his hard work, and exceptional intellectual capacity that he was later on able to graduate from the National University of Juridical Sciences. He did his Masters in Law from the School of Oriental and African Studies with a Felix Scholarship, and then his PhD from the London School of Economics with a full university scholarship. And today he is an associate professor with the Jindal University, a legend for this rejected child is today a legend for his students. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that certainly the resilience of the human spirit, the resilience of the human will eventually see us through all our difficult times. But if we get a little bit of support, then definitely our struggle will be easier. That is the basic minimum that we require from society and from the state. A little bit of support to enable us to do things the way we want them to do. After completing my graduation from Loreto, I went to the University of Calcutta to pursue my master's in political science. It was a completely different world for me because my friend on whom I was so far dependent was no longer there to support me. I had asked for permission to record lectures, which was denied to me. I could then use the typewriter. Sir was talking about this device where students can type their own answer scripts. Those were the days when I could use a typewriter. That was way back in 1998, 1999. I could type on a typewriter. I asked for permission to type my own answer scripts, which was denied to me. I completed my post-graduation from the University of Calcutta. I cleared the NET with JRF and the SLET. And then I went on to do my PhD. But I was so uncertain because who would read out books to to me. That was my main concern. As a school student, as a college student, only intensive reading of textbooks was required, for which maybe reading assistance was enough. But now was the time when I had to do extensive reading. I hired a reader because I had my JRF, so I could hire a reader for myself. A number of them. Some of them were so dishonest, they would skip portions. And that was the time when I would literally kind of became desperate to read my own stuff. And then this miracle happened. And that miracle is the technological revolution. And computers and internet came into my life. It has completely, dramatically altered my existence, my being, and my becoming. I'm so thankful to technology for all that it has given me. Today, I can read books on my own. I do not have to wait for human assistance to read books to me. So that is something which has, I mean, for many of us, it has completely, my dependent, if I am dependent, I am dependent on technology. Otherwise, I am reasonably independent. And then after, while pursuing my PhD, came the real challenge. That was the time when I realized, when I was confronted with this bitter reality that I was different from the others. And that every talk of equality was actually a facade, was actually a sham. That was the time when I began hunting for jobs. The principal of my own college, who had promised to trust me, now said to me, and quote unquote, teaching is not for you. You better write books, it will fetch you more money. And then all the applications that I submitted to private colleges were turned down with lame excuses. I went to the College Service Commission. My first appointment came in 2005, but it was in a college very, very far from my residence. I wanted to join the college, but my parents would not allow. So then began a period of, I went into a depression and wasted a lot of time because of that. In 2007, I got this appointment, and I finally joined Savitri Girls College as assistant professor, and I've been there for the last 16 years. So there is so much talk. There acts have been passed, laws have been made, policies are being made, but what is it that we are seeing on ground? What is the ground reality? How much have we been able to implement what is there on paper? If this is the scenario with me, despite my elite educational background, I can only imagine the plight of so many, the majority of the members of my fraternity. And apart from education and employment, health care services, that has also been a very big challenge for me. Accessing health care, visiting doctors, getting my condition diagnosed, getting the right treatment for the problems that I'm facing, that is also a challenge. Because every time I visit a doctor with physical ailments, physical symptoms, I'm told that because you have a disability, there is definitely a psychological cause behind your physical ailment. So that is one problem that I'm having to confront with. Mobility is a very big challenge for me, and that is difficult, everybody would admit, on the streets and lanes and bylanes of India. For everybody, it's a nightmare. Even my brother, who has been able to travel extensively outside India, cannot move around freely here when he's here. So that is another very big challenge. Family problems, yes. Relationships with friends and family members. I have always had to go that extra mile to prove myself. Always, in any kind of relationship, I have to travel that extra mile, do that extra bit to prove myself that yes, I can do that. So I always have to work more in comparison to others. So that is, and then, even then, I do not get the acknowledgement. And this is true for every one of us. And then coming to marriage and reproductive rights, that is also a very big question mark. Most of the disabled people either marry late in life or they remain unmarried. And even if they decide not to marry, out of choice, people would say that because he or she is disabled, she is not getting a right match. So that is another problem. Accessibility. Accessibility, I would say technology has improved accessibility to a certain extent, but in a country like India, where there is, where the majority of the people are still below poverty line, how many of them have been able, how many of them have the benefit of technology? So these are some of the issues that I wanted to raise today. I personally feel that as an individual, I have always been guided by the philosophy that if life gives you lemons, make lemonade out of them. But that is my own personal philosophy. I have tried, I have had challenges, I have struggled to discover solutions for myself, trying to do things differently in my own little way. So if I want to bake a cake and I cannot use the oven that is there in my kitchen, I tried to make it accessible by putting bump-ons on the time settings and on the temperature settings and the different modes of cooking. So that is how I manage things for myself. And every disabled person, I'm sure, will be able eventually to find out ways of doing things. But that does not mean that civil society and the state is exonerated of its responsibility. There is much which yet needs to be done if we all want to move towards an egalitarian society. And I think seriously appeal to, everybody who is present here, that we are all in a position to do our own little bit to make the society livable for each one of us here. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm an architect, so I think I can have a few words for universal design and barrier-free accessibility. I think it's very easy to do. I don't see why it cannot be done. My small submission to ProVC sir is we can start with our campus. Of course, it's practically very difficult to do it on the streets. Accessibility is pretty difficult on the streets, but when we enter our campus, from there onwards, movement in and around the campus should be barrier-free. Even the washrooms, the central washroom is actually for the handicapped. Nowhere is it written that it's for the handicapped. In fact, the faculty members use it. So I think it can be done. There's so much of studies and so much of work has happened on barrier-free design that it's so easy to do.
In the architecture side, it is easy to do.
It's very easy from the
For
architecture.
example, when you make a phone, telephone,
Yeah.
or a mobile phone with its universal design, there are some complications.
Absolutely, sir.
Yeah.
But I think
You can start. I think
physical accessibility is
Yes.
very easy. It's not
but
difficult.
we have to do it, so
And it's not difficult at any level. Any builder can do it. Any company can do it. Any campus can do
You
it.
propose.
It's just an intent that we show.
you propose and ask Monish,
Yeah.
normally Monish,
When we
can make a proposal, a typical budget. Only one problem that in SNU we don't have many disabled students. So testing will be an issue. But once we can say that it's fully accessible, that will also be a positive point in our favor. And I also asked Narsing, before on the other day, say what can be the research problems computer science and nursing can work together. You did not come back to me. So I'm going back to you that, no, I'm just going back to you that can technology help children, women or men, I'm sorry for saying women, people with disabilities to really work as nurses? What are the supports you need? You can think of that.
Professor Basu, I just want to make one comment. According to central government rule, all public institutions, irrespective of the number of the so-called disabled people you have to have ramps, you have to have those things, elevators, because they're the...
No, I know, but
SNU doesn't have except one.
SNU has got ramp
One ramp, that's the
for
thing.
getting in, and other elsewhere I checked, elsewhere we have got elevators. Though elevators are always crowded, but that apart, and elevators are small for the wheelchair.
Yeah.
That's true. But ramp is there.
That means somebody...
সিঁড়িটাতে এদিক দিয়ে ঢুকবার জন্য কোনো র্যাম্প নেই।
কোন এদিক দিয়ে
পেছনেও কোনো ramp নেই,
গভর্নমেন্টের নিয়মে
elevator
একটা
যাওয়ার
দিয়ে
জন্য।
ঢুকতে পেলেই হলো আর
না না,
But
elevator
that
যাওয়ার
means-
জন্য পেছনে
No,
কোনো
no,
ramp
that's
নেই।
true, that's true. What she is saying as a student is most welcome. So I want a more concrete proposal.
She is a faculty, sir.
Oh, sorry.
He's a
Doesn't look like a faculty, still a student. And I look at everybody.
Again stereotype,
all-
sir.
Huh?
Again stereotype, sir.
Yes, you
Stereotype. The
Come
student
on.
has one look, faculty has another.
Mushkil hai baba. Everybody has got some stereotypes.
We have
Everybody
to
has
have
got
stereotypes.
The older I am becoming, I am looking at everybody as students. So beware, I can also consider you my student.
No, sir, you are younger to me. Absolutely not.
But you look younger, so what can I do? So,
This is a double
uh,
trap. This is a double trap.
So if you come to me, that will be good. Okay.
I think you
Acha, Anushwa has a problem because people do not know.
question.
Question.
Stereotype, you see?
No, not a question.
You say problem.
Sorry, Anushwa. No. Actually, I was just. Professor Basu is always confusing me. This is very bad. I don't know.
আমার ঘরে একজন বসে আছে।
হ্যাঁ, আচ্ছা বিসি কেন আসতে পারছেন না জানিয়েছেন। এসআরসি ওনার সঙ্গে কথা বলবেন সেই জন্য উনি ওয়েট করছেন।
বেশ তো ঠিক আছে।
হ্যাঁ, ঠিক আছে। সেটাই
আমাদের সুন্দর আলোচনা হয়ে গেছে।
না, আমাদের আলোচনা সবসময় সুন্দর হয় এবং হবে। যাই করি আমরা। আপনি এতক্ষণ সময় দিয়েছেন, করেছেন। স্যার একটাই আপনি দেখবেন মেসেজ হোয়াটসঅ্যাপ
দেখি আর ওই অ্যাক্সেসিবল না ঠিক কোথায় কি দেখতে হবে বড় করে চলে যেতে হয় না
স্যার মেসেজ
আমি ল্যাপটপে দেখি এখন সব বেশে
হ্যাঁ, ল্যাপটপে আপনি আপনার তো মেসেজ থাকবে ল্যাপটপে যদি আপনি সিমটা ঢুকিয়ে রাখেন। আমার
listening to you. You were talking about gatekeeping and questioning ableism. My question is that academia is also a space where a lot of gatekeeping happens. Because if one wants to pursue research on disabled population, one is always disencouraged. And I have seen that feminist researchers, they would talk about women facing violence and sexual violence, and they would talk about intersectional feminism and all, but they would not address the fact that in India, we still do not have a database in the NCRB about disabled women facing violence. We would have articles on how the court procedures are gendered, but we won't talk about the problems that a hearing impaired victim or survivor of rape faces while getting justice, and how the sign language interpreter has to really go through a lot of life threats and all kinds of risks in order to get to the point of justice. And also I have seen that we would organize discussions about disability, and we would have seminars on disability and not on disability also, but in the brochures there would not be a single mention about how it can be made accessible to students who have different kind of abilities. Like there is not a mention in the brochure of, I haven't come across any conference or any particular lecture or seminar where it is written that if a hearing impaired student wants to participate, then a sign language interpreter will be present. So do you think that actual questioning of ableism will be possible in practice when academia itself inhales and exhales the narrative of ableism?
Before Nandini answers your almost longish short essay question, let me just say one thing. There is a Dipanjan profile is there after 2021 by Government of India. It is a separate one, National Statistical Program. So they are not included in Crime Records Bureau. The reason they are not included is that the mapping of crime by so-called disabled people is not there. Almost not there. Should be there, but not there. So National Statistical Profile 2021, এটা দিব্যাঞ্জন অ্যাকচুয়ালি, ওটার মধ্যে আছে। এনসিআরবিতে নেই, কারণটা এটা হচ্ছে।
I don't know whether there is a easy answer to what you have asked. Ableism exists. It exists in academia. It exists among so-called conscious feminist scholars also. So, but the point is that if you keep knocking on the door, someday it will open. There are spaces that are opening up nowadays where we are, it may not be stated openly, but if there are disabled participants, there is definitely accommodation made. So those spaces are opening up. It often is an afterthought, not a before thought that I planned for it and it is there. But these are also things I think will become part of the everyday discourse the more disabled people themselves participate. Just to give you a small example, see at IDSK we have a research methodology course for the PhD scholars. This year we have a blind student who doesn't use Braille. So her mother has been the reader, she has friends who read for her, etc. Now for Shreya, how do you teach graphs? So my colleagues, they sat with me, we thought about it, and then my colleague who teaches graphs, he said, let me use ice cream sticks, and we'll put it on paper to show a bar graph, to show a pie chart, and they made those prototypes, just to show her to feel and give her an idea of what graphs are. She may not use it her life, but she at least knows what graphs look like. So if there is a will, there is a way. It's just that it's not in our consciousness on an everyday basis. But if you keep trying, I think, see, things have progressed. From the time that I was studying, from the time that Olivia was studying, things have become a little better. It will get better, hopefully. But ableist, that the whole point that I was trying to make is we have to keep challenging these ableist ideologies. Like just now, I think she said when the word handicap. No, consciously we do not use the word handicapped anymore, because handicapped came from the thing that cap in hand, so beggars. So we are trying to do away with that kind of ideology, saying that you cannot be a beggar. A disabled person is not necessarily a beggar, or should not be asked to become a beggar. That is why we do not use, so language can sensitize people. And that is what I think we are trying to promote when we talk about disability studies. The other thing, and when Olivia was speaking, and I was just thinking about these two things that I want to put on the board here, since we have people. The first thing is, why do disabled people have to be super crips? Only when you are seen as overcoming your disability or you have become super performing, then you are acceptable to society. Not every ordinary person is a super person. So if they are allowed not to be super, I think we should also allowed not to be super. So this super crip thing and acceptability will increase only when I am very successful or I have overcome all the problems in my life. No, but Olivia, we have learned to live with our disability, not overcome our disability, because we still have our disability. It doesn't go away. We deal with it on an everyday basis. When she goes to a new area, she has to still figure out what is the kind of arrangements in which she is moving around. So it is something you learn to live with. You learn to cope with. And that is what needs to be highlighted, that the struggle is probably a little bit more, but that doesn't make us super people. We are very ordinary people and would like to be so. We would like to be, because if everybody is allowed to be ordinary, I would also like to be ordinary, right? So that is the point that I would really like to make. The other is about the point of accessibility. I think all institutions must be accessible. When you are accessible, then you can call the disabled students in. Otherwise, you are giving the disabled students a chance to say, how can I come? It is not accessible, right? So I think that is the one thing that I would like to highlight. Thank you.
প্রবিসি এই মাত্র চলে গেলেন, আমি যেহেতু বললাম যে maybe that's why. She is from Calcutta University. She was IDSK. And Dr.
All India, I know, for a very, very long period of time. We had,
Alifia,
actually,
our Vice Chancellor, please sit down. Our Vice Chancellor just walked in. Yes, Professor Dr. Dhruvajyoti Chattopadhyay. He says, I know her for a long, long time.
you were studying in Savitri.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Savitri Girls College, because at that time, she was actually over here. So how things are going on, Alivia?
Going on, sir.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah.
She was one of the, at that period of time, the NSS and everything actually.
She has got so many awards.
Exactly. The NSS award she received from,
No, I was telling that, this idea of normalcy and disability has to go, because we are all graded disabled or able. So until and unless the person cannot even have the basics of it, then we consider different. But this idea of somebody is normal, somebody is disabled, it has to go. Because a person who cannot walk, let's say, not disabled. That person does whatever the person can. So if we think some people are disabled, automatically we stereotype, label, and behave differently. That makes things very different. So we should take them as it is, because we are expecting uniformity, homogeneity. The moment we try to expect homogeneity, we beat human civilization. Because we are making a difference, and we actually adore difference. We should be admiring difference. And just because somebody cannot see does not mean that she doesn't have consciousness. I mean, having two eyes do not automatically give us consciousness. I mean, that is the most important values and principles. I'm very happy that I can arrange this here. I told in the beginning, you were not there, so I'm repeating one sentence. I couldn't do it in Calcutta University, because who will come to listen? That was the question. Who will come to listen? Somebody could not walk, somebody could not, in a chair, wheelchair, that is not accessible that point of time. Only later on, that wheelchair is accessible. You remember the ancient history, there was a person, faculty, that was a troublesome situation for him. And then also we cannot do it, because who will come to listen to this? Here we did not bother. I mean, I had a free hand. I thank my Vice Chancellor very sincerely that he never interfered in this kind of thing. And whatever we proposed, he said yes. I mean, every time in all the ADDA BAITHAKs he was there in the meeting, but this time he couldn't because he had so many official engagements. But I must thank him in front of everybody that he, as a 100% academic person, and whenever we do things, academic and practical, he supports. Now I had to tell, because
I just wanted to add one thing, whatever you mentioned so far,
my-
that I found, to me, the mindset is also big.
that is the important.
Because that's what I've seen, that when Olivia is used to work in the different sectors, she worked much, much better than anyone else. Her contribution in the different types of social work and other things, what we used to do as an outreach program and other, her participation. Once we had organized one particular camp in the Calcutta University Rowing Club, the amount of time she had given in that, no one else is given. So it's a mindset that she can't do this, she is not able to do that. The question never arises first. So, I know that in the Savitri Girls College, whenever I used to go in different types of sometimes she was actually the MC of the program. Sometimes she helped us in the during the inauguration for lamp lighting. So whatever, I couldn't find her to actually not to support anything. So this is something what I find, that it is a mindset, it's a determination and all the different things. And the person who are looking at them also is very important, as you were mentioning. So thereby it is actually, we have to make the people aware that this reality we have to consider as something which is going to actually remove the boundaries. We are talking about removal of boundaries regarding our, say for example, domain knowledge. Similarly, removing the boundaries regarding a lot of other different things which are
defining things.
exactly. So this I found that it, when I have seen that Bula mentioned about it, and I could see Nandini and Olivia coming, it's always coming to my mind that they are so successful in their field, and that is only possible because of the determination and for
It's my
things.
pride pleasure that Nandini, being my student, is here, and I invited Nandini as an expert. It's one of the most important sources of satisfaction
Definitely,
a teacher
yeah.
can have.
Definitely, yeah. Anyway, thank you. Thanks to both of you. And thanks to everybody over here who were present. Yeah.
আরো কিছু লোকজন ছিল কিন্তু
Yeah.
সবসময়
See, today I am going through so many different programs. I was actually, in the early morning, I have gone to Tamrolipto Rajbari. And there I have a lecture. After coming back from here, I have one lecture, one after another meeting. So that particular meeting is also very important. I never know about that. The history of Tamrolipto Rajbari is so strong. And,
Tamrolipto once the very center.
yeah, that is actually the port. And there are so many different things. And in the history, we could see there are a lot of different things. And there is it's got 10,000 years of historical things associated with
আমাদের
it.
নেক্সট আড্ডা বৈঠকটা খুব ইন্টারেস্টিং হওয়া উচিত। শুধু আপনি বলুন।
বাংলার পুরাকীর্তি, গৌতম সেনগুপ্ত and Srila Bose of Shantiniketan, along with Orko, who takes the photograph. They have now published a book very recently. They are going to speak.
বাংলার পুরাকীর্তি
Purak.
মে
And
মাসে
also,
নিলে আমাদের মনীষ চক্র
Monish is also going to speak
We'll talk
about
about Shantiniketan.
Shantiniketan's architectural issues. So, we hold it almost every month. One of
আড্ডা
these
বৈঠক
other
is once a
That
month.
will be the fifth one.
That will be the fifth one. Yeah. I mean, we started with 2023 January. So every month, I don't want to use the word religiously, but sincerely, we have the Adda Bojak once a month. And it invariably goes after 5. We say 3 to 5, but it can never finish before 5:30 is the minimum time.
ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজকে যেরকম খারাপ করে ফেলেছি না যে এখন ওয়ার্ড ইউজ করতেও হয় না।
না তাই তো রিলিজিয়াসলি আরে ধর্ম কথাটার অরিজিনাল সংস্কৃত মানে হচ্ছে কোড অফ কন্ডাক্ট প্রপার সেটাকে ধর্ম টর্ম বানিয়ে এই ইজম ওই ইজম করে এখন রিলিজিয়ান কথাটা বলতেই আমার পারে না। আমার রিলিজিয়ান তো হতে পারে যে অন্য কিছু তো সেটা তো বোঝা যাবে না আর হিউম্যানিটি
মানে জাস্ট এইটাই আজকে আলোচনাটা ছিল ওই তাম্রলিপ্ত রাজবাড়িতে।
আচ্ছা,
এটা একটা
আচ্ছা।
ইউনেস্কো প্রোগ্রাম ছিল।
ও
UNESCO is right now trying to establish we should at this particular time we have to think about stopping any other rather than making people aware of the fact of how we can define peace. The peace, this particular word, in many seminars and everywhere we used to use the term peace. But what is actually the peace meaning? And the thing what they said, that the strongest enemy of peace is the right now the world, the whole military weapon. If that military weapon and that particular thing could have, they mention it, the religion, the caste, all these things, these boundaries may go, but this particular concept of the weapon, people are giving most of the money for their weapon things, and that if it is not could be stopped, you can never have peace.
No, actually, the American military pollutes the world more than any other pollutant because of the things they used to. This is the study of sociologists and the environmentalists together under United Nations, that how pollution is going on. American military যে পরিমাণ pollutant use করে, ordinary মানুষ যারা আমরা use করি, হাজার হাজার গুণে বেশি। So ওইখানে না stop করলে কি করে stop হবে? তো আসলে ঠিক আছে, thank you sir. Thank you everybody for a very intense discussion and patience.